Good afternoon, everyone. Just stopping by briefly to have a quick conversation with you all. Um, this is going to be a premiere, just as we have been doing lately, where I can actually answer any questions during the premiere that you may have that may come up for you. So as always, I'm excited to see you here. I'm grateful for just all of your continued support. Um, I'm grateful for your feedback, and I just appreciate each and every one of you, right? First, I'm always hoping that everyone did have a restful night's sleep, as sleep hygiene is really important. And at some point, we'll dive into that, right? All right, family. So let me tell you, now y'all saw the title of this. So there was something that I saw on X, right? Formerly known as Twitter, as well as the brother Underrated Darkness had asked specifically about triggers, right? So Gervonta Tank Davis had actually posted and he said, stay away from those things that triggers you. And that's the way he had worded it, right? And I want you to think about that. Stay away from the things that, obviously may trigger you. Now, I'm going to be totally honest. I'm not in his mind, so I cannot say for certain that he could have been speaking of himself. He could have just, it came to him and he just wanted to maybe encourage someone. I don't know, right? But it's a lot in that one line that I read. Stay away from the things that trigger you. Okay. Well, first, let's dive into what I would actually, explain a trigger to be, because it's one of those words we talk about buzzwords and how we hear them all the time, oh, I'm triggered. Oh, that triggers me. You're triggering me. I mean, it's just everyone is triggered, right? Well, the truth is that a trigger is actually, it's when something happens, some level of disturbance. Okay. We talk about that with what we would identify as being a trauma, right? It could be a significant disturbance, or you had a experience that negatively impacted you, right? And from that experience or that trauma, when anything seems like, looks like, smells like, sounds like that previous experience that you had, your emotional response, your entire behavior is reacting on a level that doesn't really sometimes match what is happening around you. Okay? Let's break that down a little further. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that, and we've spoken about that in other videos, y'all, you may not be in the actual experience that caused you to be disturbed, but because it feels like it, seems like it, sounds like it, it prompts this intense emotional reaction from you. I hope y'all are with me, okay? So that is, in a nutshell, what a trigger is, okay? It's something that takes place eternally, um, and we respond on like a level 10 to in that certain moment, which could have just been a level 1 or 2, because I didn't say that you're reliving this experience. No, it's something that prompted this memory or flashbacks, right? Okay. All right, y'all. Now let's take a step further. How can we cope with these triggers. Because surely you understand that if we don't find a way to manage these symptoms, guess what? They begin to manage us. And before you know it, everything, literally everything you find triggering. So it's important that we take the initiative to say, okay, yep, that reaction I had, this must be a trigger for me. We're identifying it. All right. What can I do? Because when we're in the middle of this intense emotional reaction, my hope is that after watching all of the videos that you've seen, you have now begun to build your own coping toolbox. And you will go in that toolbox once you feel that you are being triggered or you've had a trigger response, and you use one of those coping skills that we've discussed that I may have taught to you previously. Mindfulness techniques, bringing yourself back to present so that way the brain is not preoccupied and consumed by that experience that you once had, right? Yeah, because when we're triggered, it does not indicate that in that moment, it's the experience that has happened. No, no. It reminds us of that difficult experience or of that traumatic experience, right? So you want to do your best in the midst of it. Once you feel that emotional response begin to take place, once that stimuli, right, just begins to begin this entire emotional response. And we've talked about that sympathetic nervous system, right? When one is truly triggered according to the definition, right, in psychology, they are in that fight, flight, freeze, right? They're in that whole type of sympathetic response, which is why their outward outward behavior is seen like, what the hell? Why did they just totally blow up like that? What is happening? And to us, it may look like, oh my gosh, it wasn't even that serious. But you really don't know what could have been taking place within that person internally, right? I hope y'all are with me on this. All right, so like I said, if you're in the midst of that emotional response, those intense emotions, go into that toolbox. Try a coping skill. You want to calm yourself down first to be able to become more present, right? You don't want to be present with that past experience. That's not going to help. We need to calm ourselves down, bring us back to that parasympathetic mode, okay? Where we are relaxed. Now we can look around us and observe that, okay, I may feel threatened, but I'm not actually being threatened. I may feel attacked, targeted, but am I actually being attacked or targeted? Or is it maybe just reminding me of that difficult experience that I may have lived through, right? All right. So we have a, understanding of just how to bring ourselves down back to that parasympathetic state. Now, I used a keyword very early on, and that was taking initiative. If we already know and we have been able to identify that which triggers us, if it is early on, that's not the time to try to push yourself through. Okay, just hear where I'm going with this, because it was his words, i.e. speaking of Gervonta Tank Davis, and just how he said that, staying away from those things that trigger us. That statement, like I said, I do not proclaim to know exactly what his intention was behind it. No. Mm-mm. But I do want us to really look at that thing, because who would want to live in a constant trigger state, also known as survival mode, where your senses are always heightened based off of these triggers and your previous experiences or trauma? It's not healthy for you holistically, y'all. Okay. So when you're first identifying your triggers, you just want to learn how to calm yourself down so that you don't become the behavior, meaning that the trigger does not develop its own identity. No, we want to learn how to manage this thing, because over time, you actually can reach resilience. And that is the goal. Staying away from it your entire life is not helping you, y'all. It is impossible to avoid all triggers. That's not realistic. That is black or white thinking, as we previously discussed in cognitive distortions. That is a blanketed statement in absolute. Oh, just stay away from them. That's not realistic. It's not realistic. But there are ways to better cope. Like I said, mindfulness, positive self-talk, affirmations, reflected on a time where you worked through it previously, being patient with yourself as you begin to better work through your triggers, right? And so before you know it, you now have identified these coping skills that you have found to be most beneficial when you are triggered. Guess what? Now we can start that exposure portion of it. You don't invite it in all at once, but you begin to, over time, expose yourself to situations or around people or conversations that previously have triggered you. And you use your skill, and before you know it, you can expose yourself to it a little more. And you begin to desensitize your own self to that which at one point was triggering. I hope this is making sense, y'all. Yeah, we don't want to expose ourselves all at once. No, but that is the goal, is to get to a place where we can begin to challenge ourselves. If you have a toolbox, no different than when you have a toolbox to build something, okay, you're gonna at some point need all of the tools. At some point, you're gonna have to pull one out. You may not use them all at the same time, but it can definitely feel more empowering to know you have that which you may need. I encourage you all to really listen. If you have to go back and kind of listen to a lot of these steps that we have discussed, right? And so, as always, I look forward to just hearing your feedback. I'm hoping that you found this content to be meaningful for you. I'm hoping that it is a word, that buzzword triggers, where now you have even a greater understanding. And also, if you are someone that struggles with that you also can now feel more empowered to better handle it, being able to manage that symptom versus it managing you. So that way you can just live a better quality of life, right? Be gentle with yourselves. Try being patient with yourself, for we are all doing this thing called life for the very first time. I appreciate all of you. I've actually placed it in the chat over there if you would like to donate to the channel. I thank you in advance. Blessings always.